Hi,
Hi.
Paranormal Polly. I have Colleen
Hi.
here, and she's going to be telling us about her UFO experiences and how some of these things all intertwine together. Hi, Colleen.
Hi. I'm going to start off, like I said, I'm going to start off when I was I left my family at 16. I was in and out before that at a very young age. But I left my family at 16 and I went and I got emancipated so that I could get my dad's Social Security and have my own place. Well, I started I used to always ride a skateboard everywhere I went because that was my transportation. And when I worked in Los Alamitos, but I lived in Long Beach, and because I worked graveyard, that's of course my first job at Jack in the Box. They make you work graveyard.
Yeah, yeah.
So and I still also had to go to school, which was right down the street from where I worked. And so what I would do is I would go to my friend's house, like hours before I had to be at work so I could rest and shower and, just rest up before I had to go in for work. Well, what started happening was, and I know this is part alien, is I started getting phone calls. And the phone calls, it would always be somebody else answering the phone, never at my mom's, only when I was staying at different friends' house. And I would get the phone call and they'd say, "Oh, some lady on the phone." I take the phone, and the noise and what I heard was so scary. It was something out of this world. It was not like what in the 70s we knew how to do technology wise, like a friend. I thought maybe it was a friend. Like, I had some guys at school had crushes on me, and I wouldn't. I was a tomboy. I was like, I don't. You know, but I did think that it was happening because somebody was pulling a prank on me. But then it started happening at everybody's houses that I stayed in. And every time, and then it happened where every time they say it's some man on the phone for you. And I'm like, nobody knows I'm here. And immediately that noise and sound would come on, and all I could do, it would paralyze me almost. And
What does it sound like? What could you like? What kind of
metal, it sounded metal
metallic?
with high pitched metal sounding noise, almost like something's just crushing together, but metallic, like.
Weird.
And it's almost like somebody was trying to transmit a voice, but you couldn't hear it, but you heard all in the background scary noise. It was really loud. And I'd hang up the phone and look at my friend and go, "Really? Who was that? What'd they say? They just asked for you." And it was a man. Next night, it's a woman. I'm like, I don't know. Nobody's supposed to be calling me here. No, nobody knows I'm here. Same thing would happen. Same noises. Same. It was so scary. And then that happened like 10 times. And I might get like a couple days break in between. And usually that's when I went to my own apartment because I couldn't afford a phone. So no phone calls. But I'd go to work. Sorry about that. I'd go to work. It started happening at work. And I was just like, what in the hell is this? Well, I'll come back to that later. But the first time I seen a UFO directly with my own eyes was in 1988. And I was in Garberville, California, Humboldt County. And where I was living at was like way up high, like 4,000 feet elevation. And we had to take Alder Point Road. Well, we would gather groceries for anybody that wanted groceries because it was a long haul. And so we were getting ready to go up the mountain, and we traveled up the mountain. All of a sudden, this cloud came out of nowhere. I mean, nowhere. And people were pulled over, and there's not a lot of people on that road. But there were like 10 cars pulled over, and they're all out just looking up. And I was like, what is that? And my boyfriend said, just stay in the car. And I'm like, no, what is that? And so my daughter was in the back seat, and I was like, Cherie, don't look. Just don't look. I look up. I get out of the car. I look up, and you could see the disc. You could see the lights in between, through the clouds. It
Oh
was
my God.
daylight. It was daylight. It wasn't nighttime. It was daylight. This
How
happened in,
many people witnessed it?
well, I'll say at least, there's 10 cars. I counted 10 cars because there was like 7 on this side and 3 on the other side going the opposite direction. We were the 11th. I know a couple more people pulled over behind us. Some just sped away real fast, but I remember just looking up, and then the cloud moved. It moved with it, real quiet, not a noise, no noise. And it was like, I was in shock. I was like, what was that? What is this? What is this? But something inside me said, don't worry, but I was still scared. And Sheree, my daughter, was really scared. She was like, Mama, I want to go home. I want to go home. I said, we are, honey. And I was scared, but I couldn't show my fear to her. I didn't want her to see that.
Yeah, Mama Bear.
Yeah. And so we get home. We get to his sister's house first, who lived like 1,000 feet below us. We were at 4,000 feet. She was at, a little more. She was at about 2,400 feet elevation because we were deep in the mountains. And we went to her house first, and we get out of the car. She comes running out. The first thing she said, did you see it?
Oh, my gosh.
And we're like, we're 100 miles, 150 miles away. I said, you seen it? She's like, yeah, I seen it. She said, did you guys see it? And we're like, yeah. She goes, yeah, it's been patrolling here all morning and while you guys were gone. So I was like, I was scared. I was. And
So it was
so
a
we were
disc-shaped UFO. Disc.
Yes. And it had, I remember the colors orange, blue, and green mostly stuck out. Blue and green. Because I thought, oh, what pretty colors. And then I was like, don't look, don't keep staring at this. And it was moving so slow that, you stood there for a while hoping it would just zip away, but it didn't.
Right.
So when she seen it, so we decided for my daughter to stay at Andre's house. That was my boyfriend's sister's name, Andre. And I knew these people, my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, and his sister were different people because of some of the things they would say to me. That just seemed so out of the blue. That was just strange, So we dropped my daughter off. She's hanging out there with Andre and her 2 boys. My daughter was also a tomboy. She always wanted to be there. We go up to where we lived, and we were on 160 acres. We had this big trailer, like 80-foot, double wide. Well, and we were caretakers. We were supposed to make sure nobody grew pot on the property, Yeah. And my boyfriend smoked, but I didn't. I hated pot. It was like nothing for me. And no drugs. He drank beer and his pot and his cigarettes. And it was that night. I had a bad back, and being new to the mountains, I didn't know the trails, and and people would say, "Oh, no, when it's snowing, you got to take these back trails." And I was like, "I ain't going that way. I'm hitting the road." But anyway, so that night I have to get back to that. Say I'll go off track here. I will, because I have so many memories. So that night, I remember one of the rules were, because we were up so high, we're way out in the wilderness, always keep the guns on you. Don't let anybody in the house. We had a 357, we had a 38, and a 308 rifle. And so in the middle of the night, I wake up. Something's waking me up. I walk out, and there's this black man standing in my kitchen. And I'm like, what the hell? So I run back to grab the 38. And I don't even notice if my boyfriend's in bed. I just know I'm getting the gun to get this guy. By the time I came back, there was 3 white guys standing next to him. And all of a sudden they point, and I look out the window, and there's all of these tents with people standing next to them. They looked like us, but some of them looked really grungy, and they weren't happy. They weren't nice. They were mean. And I wouldn't let go of the gun. And they kept saying to me telepathically, pardon me?
How many were out there?
So many I couldn't see the ground.
What?
Yeah. Our tulip farm, our little, we had an outhouse. We were living off grid. I couldn't see the ground. It was just tent, just all these things. And I thought, what in the world? And they kept telling me telepathically, put down the gun. And I'm like, no, I'm not. There's no
Right.
way. And they're keep saying it, put down the gun. I'm like, no, get the hell out of my house. What the fuck is this going on? And then my boyfriend all of a sudden appears in the vision, and he's begging me, please, Colleen, please put the gun down. And I'm like, no, you've even told me to protect this house and to protect your son, my daughter. No. And he was just had a very defeated look on his face, like, please put the gun down. And I said, no. And next thing I know, there are like 8 of them sitting on my furniture. And one grabs me and tells me, just sit next to me.
Did your boyfriend could see them too then?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just asking.
Yes and no. I don't see. This is where it gets weird. So all of a sudden, the next thing I know, this person says, just sit next to me. We won't take the gun from me, but just listen to us. And I was in such a state of mind of, fuck you, get out of my house. What are you? Who are you? Who's in my, get out. And he was staying so calm, but he looked defeated, like kissing ass, like, oh God, Colleen, don't do this.
Do what they say.
And,
Just do what they say.
huh?
He's like, just do what they say.
Yeah. And I was like, no. And next thing I know, the gun's out of my hand and I'm being carried through the hall, but they have me with my arms behind my back and my legs behind my back. My stomach is facing the ground and I could see my hallway. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm screaming and yelling. I mean, I'm fighting them. I remember feeling that pull. And the next thing I know, they have me, I thought was my bed, because I was trying to think logically, going, okay, they got me in the hallway, they're doing this. And then all of a sudden, they had me on something I thought was my bed. And something went into my base of my spine. That was the most horrific pain in the whole world. It knocked me out. The pain was so severe that it almost killed me. I felt like I died. I really do. I felt like I was dying. But the pain was so bad, it finally just made me go unconscious.
So what did they look like? Like, were they like typical alien, like gray, or were they look like
No,
people?
they look like people. They did that on purpose. I understand that now. And they probably tried to let me know, look, we're up here. But for me, not ever being around that or understanding that, and with my background, all the scary stuff that I already been through, I was like, I'm done with all the scary stuff. I want you out. I don't care. But they did what they did to me. And it was 2 days later. And I'd forgotten. I woke up. I didn't remember this for nothing. I didn't remember.
You were not in any pain?
No, I was in no pain. I didn't remember anybody being out there. I don't remember anybody being in the house. And I thought, at the time I didn't think, to be honest with you. So I all of a sudden just have this drive to walk through the mountains to get to my boyfriend's sister's house on foot. And I'm like, so I did it. And I just went. And I got there and she's like, how'd you get here? And I said, I walked. She's like, where's your car? And I said, I walked. She's, you don't even know the way. I said, yeah, I do. I just did this thing and it took me right to your house. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. She goes, how about your back? And I said, I looked up at her. I said, my back isn't hurting really. I said, but something's itching my back. I said, I feel like itchy. I said, but I haven't done anything wrong. She goes, you never were able to walk like that and hike. And I was like, well, things change. And I said, yeah, but what's itching me back there? And she lifted my shirt. And I had this huge bruise and a bunch of little holes, but one big one right in the center of my spine. Excuse me. Right in the center of my spine. She's like, what did you do? What happened to you? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't remember. And Lee was with his brother-in-law working. Well, he came back from work and met me there at his sister's house. And he came in and I was upstairs. She had a 2-story in the kitchen. Everything was downstairs and the living room, bedrooms were upstairs. And they lived off grid as well. And I was up there, and we would turn on the TV maybe once every couple of days because electricity, we didn't have any. We ran a generator or we powered, So I was up there watching a movie because she had a satellite dish, huge one, right by her pond. It was a really big one. But anyways, I was watching a movie, and all of a sudden, I could hear him, my boyfriend, and his sister talking, but it was all blocked out, kind of like I was just right in front of the TV paying attention. Then all of a sudden, I hear nothing from the TV. It kind of like the noise went down on the TV, and I could hear them talking, like I now can hear them. And she said to him, "Why did you let this happen? What happened to her?" And he said, "I had no choice. They were throwing energy balls at me." And I'm like, "What are you guys talking about?" I knew they were talking about me, but I wasn't ready to hear it. But I had to pay attention. And he started laughing. He goes, "That's her fault." And I was like, "Wait a minute, what's this about?" She goes, "It's about what happened to you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "All the aliens that are up here." And I'm like, "What? What?" And I thought it was just some weird, yeah. And I thought it was just something from what I seen, and then I went, "Oh God," and I said, "Well, why did they?" And then we talked about it, and then all of a sudden things started. I mean, it flooded hard back at me, everything, and I got so mad. And I remember looking at him, going, "F you and F you. I don't know what's going on up here in the mountains, but I'm checking out. I'm out of here." And they're like, "No, no, you can't look at it that way." And I'm like, "How am I supposed to look at this?" They
Right.
said it's kind of like. They said it's kind of like. Say they use the analogy, when there's an injured animal and you try to help them and they bite,
Uh-huh.
you put them in the corner to bite. Well, that was you last night, Colleen. They were trying to help you, and I'm like, bullshit. They were mean looking, they weren't nice, they weren't gentle. So they kept trying to convince me that, they were just these aliens were trying to help me, and that these were from somewhere else, and that they've been here a long time. And then when I got to know them even more, so I wouldn't even go home with him. I stayed at her house. I was so mad. I was just like, I had my kitty cat, Kaylee. Kaylee's going, "Don't talk about them. Say hi, everybody. Say hi." So I didn't want to, no, Kaylee. I was so mad at him. I didn't want to go back to him. But first, his sister conditioned me more. Like, tried to talk me into letting me know I'm safe. And I was worried about my daughter. I said, "They touch my kid, I'll kill him. I won't put the gun, I will just fire." And that's what I felt like I should have done in the first place, but something kept stopping me.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't until I got out of there like a year later, and I thought, okay, everything's great. I'm getting away from him. And the only thing he could say to me was, "Thank you for taking such good care of me." And I thought, what a strange thing to say, because I did. Being an empath, I always took care of men, feeding them, doing the laundry, being the girlfriend, and once I got away from him, it got better for a while, and then he found out where I lived, and he came back. And it all started with a vengeance. And this is why I say some aliens are good, some are bad. And I think the ones that have been stuck here for a long time, like the fallen angels, so I believe they were aliens. They've just been here a long time, and my boyfriend was one of them. I mean, he was. I know now, and so is his family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I knew something was different about his mom, because she could just touch you and read everything about you in a second, just like that. You have to understand my mentality at the time because of how I was raised. I didn't think much of myself. I didn't care so much about myself. It was always about everybody else. I never took care of myself. So when I moved away from him, he found out where I was living, and he showed up at the time when I was having a housewarming party. And I'd met some neighbors. He shows up, and it just got so bad. I was constantly getting like noises.
Thank you,
I was,
Tiger. He said he
I
liked my
was
shirt. He thinks your cat is cute or cool.
But
Grr.
things started happening to me at that house that were really bad. I mean, really bad. Um, I had the neighbors saying that I never met before that were new coming in, and they're out there trying to give my daughter cookies and things. I'm like, no, she can't have these. And you don't go and meet a child on the street and try to find out information.
It's weird.
And I was mad. I was like myself going, no, you can't do that. Well, a couple weeks later, during my housewarming party, the couple down the street show up and they seemed to know my boyfriend that showed up uninvited. And I told them, get out. I don't want you around my kid. I don't know who you guys are. I was a little on edge about who I was meeting because of what had happened to me, and I didn't know who's who or what's what. I was really, at the same time though, I was just going on saying, okay, I'm over what happened to me up there. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. Right before I left, I stayed. I forgot about this. Sorry, everybody. I was, and this is how I know military is involved. We had been at his sister's house because we were all going to go to town for his court date because he owed child support, of course. And we were all going to stay at her house because she's at low elevation and it's been snowing, and it's easier to get on the road and get to Eureka from there. And she had a little trailer out there, had a couple beds. It was about a 20, 30-foot trailer. And me and my boyfriend were sleeping. Sheree, my daughter, was and his son was in his sister's house. And we're laying there, and all of a sudden, I see, and this sounds really stupid, but it's real. I see this light that is so bright that comes down over her satellite by her pond. I could actually see the mechanisms in the satellite dish. I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't know anything about her satellite dish. I watched her VCR, back then.
Right.
Because she said it's been broke for years. They don't know what's wrong. And so I could see these things, and I seen a couple lights that weren't lighting up. And I thought, wow, that's a bright moon, or a bright. And so I laid my head back down, and next thing I know, I heard the trailer door open.
What?
And I'm like, okay, what's that? And I was like, please let it be Shree. Well, I seen a smaller creature, and I just shut my eyes because the way it walked was weird. And it was just looking at us, and I could feel it.
How tall do you think it was?
Maybe up to my waist, maybe 4 feet.
Okay.
And there's one smaller, but that was like maybe 3.5 feet. And I just went, pretend you're asleep, pretend you're asleep. Why am I waking up? Damn it. Why did I see this? And I nudged him. Wake up, wake up, wake. Somebody's in the trailer with us. And all of a sudden I hear the door open again and they leave. I don't hear or sense them. And I lift my head up a little bit, and it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. It was like 2 to 3 our military helicopters right there on on the property, right next by the trailer, by the house, in the field. And there's military men talking to these smaller creatures.
Whoa. Did you hear the helicopters? Or
No. I remember going like this, looking at the window. I'm like, what am I looking at? And then all of a sudden, my boyfriend was out there talking to him. And I look over, and he's in bed. And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, it's one of these things. Nope. I don't want to know, don't want to see. And they came back. I was almost asleep again, going, and I kept praying to God, saying, please protect me, please. Whatever's happening, I don't want to see. I can't handle this. But at the same time, it's kind of fascinating and adventurous. Like, what's happening? And why is there military here? I mean, people in the military started moving up there after this. Sergeant Major Marines, brain surgeons that were sergeant majors in the Marines, people like that were showing up there. Yeah, all of a sudden. But we I mean, we would hear helicopters because so many people were growing marijuana up there.
Oh,
So you hear
right.
the boom, 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 boom. We were like, "Oops, it's camp. Okay, go ring the bell, everybody." But anyway, so I eventually went back to sleep, obviously, and then and there was it was maybe months after I finally got out of there, and I didn't.
Tiger, I want to read what Tiger said to you. He said, "Just
Okay,
wanted to say thank you, Colleen, for sharing your story. I know talking about the stuff can be really hard, so thank you."
it is hard. It because it brings back. I prayed with God this morning and this afternoon, asking for guidance through this because I'm not a liar for one. I want to be really sure of how I communicate this, but it's hard because I'm a very emotional creature. I'm an empath. I know who I am, and so I get all. I laugh now because I'm not in it, you know.
Right.
So what happened once I left him, I got down in the house and these people kept badgering me and they knew I studied astrology a little bit, but not like I know how now. But it was people were like coming over and just attacking me, being jealous. They're like, "Why can't you do my chart? Why won't you do a reading?" And I was like, "Whoa, dude, I'm not that good yet. I did it basically to help me. I wasn't doing it to become a professional astrologer. I really was not, and I never wanted to be." And then that little guy, him and his girlfriend, that was trying to give my daughter cookies and kept trying to get her in the house. I did tell him to get the hell out, and he wouldn't move. So I grabbed him by the seat of his pants, and I literally chucked him out my door. And he said, "You ever tell your daughter she can't come in my house?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Don't you ever tell your daughter she can't come over to me." And I was just like, "You little shit fuck. I don't care who you are. You don't work. You show up in the most expensive house. You're both 4 feet tall." So I was like, "Fuck you, little demons and asshole aliens. I don't know who they are, but you don't walk into somebody's house and say your daughter's allowed to come to my house when I said she is not."
Exactly.
So it was all this stuff trying to take my guard down. And the more I got independent and strong, the more the weirder stuff happened. Like, we had a wood stove that we liked to use because we couldn't afford the heat bill very well. I was a single parent. And so we had a wood stove, and I would always run out of kindling. And so one time, me and my daughter show up home, and my boyfriend was down the street. He wants to greet us, and he's like, "Look," and I'm like, "What?" And I had a back door, side door, and a front door in this house. And every doorway, there was these huge piles of wood, real long redwood. I know it was redwood, but they're all in a cross. They're all in cross. But to me, being who I was, I went, "Thank you, God. Jesus, see, sure, Jesus does love us and wants us to have heat. And this is how we do it." And we gathered it up. And she's like, "My mom, why are they in crosses?" I'm like, "Because it's from Jesus." Little did I know, all the people around there were into satanic shit, and they did drugs. Yeah. And so they were like marking me by putting the wood there with crosses, thinking because I did astrology and I believed in God. They thought, "No, you're one of us." And I'm like, "No, I'm not one of you." And they did not like that. I think my boyfriend stirred up the energy because of who he was and what he is. He still lives today, I think, but I mean, I wrote him off. And his sister, she would say things to me, like, "I heard Lee's not having a good, the reason you're fighting is because he says you want to have sex with it." And I'm thinking, why would his sister approach me with that? I wasn't a sexual being. I had a lot of trauma. I was raped a couple times, once when I was 11 and a half, once when I was 15. And it was only because I had nowhere to live. I wasn't safe where I was. So she says, "Well, here you are, a fat cow, and then he's a bull." She's talking about him being a Taurus and me. And I was just like, "Where do you get your analogies at? If you really want to have a pep talk with me to help your brother have sex with me, this isn't the way to do it." And I told her, I'm not interested in it.
That's just
Not like he
odd.
wanted, not like he wanted me to be. And and she would say stuff like, we're only nice to people because they do things. I'm like, well, that's ain't cool. Because we're only nice because we have to be. And I was like, what's this we stuff? And then I did her chart, her mom's chart, and Lee's chart, my ex-boyfriend. And I put them on the table, and all of a sudden, right in front of her eyes and my electricity, just like somebody had electricity under the paper.
Whoa.
And it basically told me they're all intertwined, they're all together. So me thinking and knowing what he was, I went, oh shit. Hi, Andre. She's like, hi, glad you can find out, you're realizing how you could talk to me now. And I was like, okay, human form, alien, okay. And I was like, oh, it's nice to see you. I still like being around them because they didn't hurt me. At times they didn't like me a lot. And of course they were always like, keep away from Lee. He is an intellect and you don't understand what intellects are like, meaning alien species, the ones that have been here a long time. And he was a asshole, very mean person. So that was that. But oh no, I'm sorry. So I couldn't get away from him. He wouldn't leave me alone. People were pounding on my doors and banging on my windows. The cops would be called. There would be no footprints in the rain. I lived in Eureka. It always rained. I lived in this little town with 200 people outside of Eureka, 3 miles away. And it was always raining there. So you always would see mud tracks if somebody was out there, and they never would find any. Even my own brother who came up, he woke me up. Somebody's pounding on the door. And I said, yeah, I could hear it from here. We got there, nothing. We called the police, nothing. And they would always be calling my name. And it was just like, and so I thought it was just like, so I thought it was just something from the mountain. But then I found out it was a mixture of people and energy. And so when I got out of, I'll be honest, because he wouldn't leave me alone and because he was always there, and I, for some reason, would stick up for him sometimes. And my daughter's grandmother didn't really like me. She always wanted custody of my daughter. She was always, thought her son shouldn't have to pay child support. And although he was a piece of shit father, he didn't really care. He didn't have the knowledge, nor did I really, but I had enough to know that's my baby girl and you're not going to touch her. And one night after she was taken and I had full custody, legal sole custody, and it was almost like being in Portland. The sheriffs came and said, she's going to take her. And I'm like, what the hell? No, you're not. For what?
Right.
And there's like, they literally had to pry her out of my arms. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Pardon me?
What basis did they have to take her from you?
Because I was with that guy. He wouldn't leave me alone. I couldn't get away. I could not get away. I literally would be kicking him out in front of her because she owned the house, my daughter's grandma. She owned the house, but I got Section 8. So she made a lot of money. She asked for a lot of rent. I had to pay like $190, I think it was, a month. And she would come over and say, if he's living here, and I'm like, he's not living here. I don't want him here. I'd call the police. He'd be gone. They never did nothing. I mean, I called and called and called. And so one night I decided, I told God, if you're going to let this happen to me, because I was in shock. I didn't understand what was happening, why this bad stuff was around me, and I couldn't get out of it. So I went to sleep, and I told God, though, before I went to sleep, I will not wake up for you. And I said those words. And I was so distraught from losing her. They took her. The grandmother took her. And my family was not there for support.
Right.
And it startled me. It shook me to my core. And I got mad at God. And I said, don't wake me up. I won't wake up for you. Well, next thing I know, my feet are coming out of water. And I went, oh, is this a residue from drugs in my past or what? Like old drug dreamer or something. And when I said that, my feet went back in the water. like I was going back under. And I went, okay, I'll listen. And next thing I know, I'm floating and this bright lights above me. And I'm like, God, the moon is so bright again. Oh my God, it's so bright. But it had me on my back and I'm like looking like, where are we going? And it was up in the sky. And all of a sudden I see like this huge mansion made of wood, like a medieval castle, like it was wood. And then all of a sudden I'm standing up in front of the door and I open it and the building disappeared and I was in nothing but crystals. Crystals as big as mountains.
Whoa.
Just every color, every kind. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't have crystals before. I never, I was just like, whoa, this is cool. I didn't feel threatened there, nothing. And all of a sudden I got this knock on the back of my head so hard. And I was like, what is that? I had this attitude. I'm just going to survive. So I wasn't all like gentle and going, okay, show me what you're going to show me. I was more like, what the hell's going on? And I looked behind me and it hit me again. And I looked behind and there's a floating ram's head. Yeah, I know.
What?
And I'm like, it was almost like I knew him. I went, knock it off. That hurt. And he opened his eyes and he said, pay attention. And I'm all just wanting to touch the crystals. I'm like, whoa. This is so cool. And all of a sudden he hits me again. And he says, pay attention. I'm like, to what? And all of a sudden I looked straight forward and in this humongous crystal, I was just like, whoa. But dead center was an elephant. Like it was inside of it. And he was crying. Yeah, right? I went, yeah, but I felt this compassion. This is when Kuan Yin showed, I know who it was now, but I was taken because I was so lost and I was ready to die without killing myself. I just said, I'm done. And I think they heard me pretty loud and clear. And I know that light was probably a ship. It wasn't the moon.
Right.
And they took me to a place that showed me kind of where I'd come from, I think. Because the next morning, as distraught as I'd been for months because she was gone and I couldn't fight. I didn't have money. I didn't have a car. I gave up my job because I was so messed up in my head. I was like, okay, I'm falling apart here. Things are really going down fast. And it was so, my house was so bright when I woke up in the morning. It was almost like some big, just the energy in the house was just incredibly beautiful. And I opened the front door and I was like, I'm alive, man. I'm so alive. And I had this strong, compassionate feeling for everything and every living creature. I had this energy like nothing could stop me. And I'm getting my daughter back, by golly. It was like, you ain't doing this to me. So after that, I literally had people come in saying they're going to take over my house. I said, that's not mine. So here's the keys. Bye. And nobody would help me with my family. So I still had to stick around a little bit. But I started watching really closely who's doing what. And I realized where I was. And I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of Humboldt County, period. And I was born and raised in Long Beach and Orange County. So, but I didn't want to go back to the city. But I knew I had to. And I got there and I'm in sweats with holes in it. And I went to this place to just look at what jobs might be coming up. My family, my sister that you met, Joanne, said, oh, you ready to come home now? And I was like, yeah, I need help. But nobody listened to me about the things I told them. It was like, yeah, right. Okay, Colleen, whatever. And I was like, okay, I got to keep it to myself, I guess. And I went to this place to look for a job. And they're like, oh, there's a hiring at the 2 World Trade Center, Hilton, where ambassadors and presidents come. And I'm like, yeah, right. And she's like, you got to go right now. I'm like, no, I'm not dressed for it. Go right now. And I was like, oh my God. I walk in there and everybody in line for that interview, we're all in suits and ties and everything. And I went, oh, I'm not going to, I shouldn't have come. And I sit down, it was my turn. And I'm like, I apologize. He goes, stop. He goes, you're going to get the job. I'm like, what? What? He's like, yeah, you're going to be a housekeeping manager. Because I applied for housekeeping supervisor. He goes, how about manager? And I'm like, looking at him like, well, why would you just hire me? You don't even know me. And I walked in there looking like this, and they were like, hired. And I walked out looking at everybody still in line going, oh boy, you're going to be disappointed. But I thought, oh my God, another gift. Here comes a gift. And I ran home, and I remember and he's like, you got to do drug tests. I'm like, I don't care. I'm good, And I started working there. It was great. And I got my daughter back within 3 months.
Wow.
I drove back to Sonoma where they had her, and I walked into their door without knocking, and I said, I'm taking my daughter. Here's my sole legal custody papers that I've had since she was born, and you ain't stopping me. And she said, I have guardianship. And I said, I don't care. I'm taking her. Call the police, do whatever you want, but you're not fucking with me no more. You had no reason to do that to me. But she didn't like me in the first place. So I ended up I got my daughter back. We stayed in Long Beach for about 1.5 years. And she wanted to be back by her grandma. My daughter wanted to be by her grandma. And I said, okay, but you're living with me, and we're going to have some rules. So we get this little house. Well, we had an apartment. We'll talk about another. That's part of the hauntings. But in this one house, I moved out of that apartment above the store in Sonoma, which I'm going to talk about. And then we went to this house right across the street that was in an alley. And in that alley, that house, I don't know, everybody was seeing me walk around in cloaks.
Cloaks?
Yeah, like I had cloaks on. They're like, Mom, what were you doing walking around last night with the cloaks? And I'm like, what are you talking? I don't have a cloak. And they're like, it was you, Mom. It was you. And my sister, Kathleen, she's like, I seen it. And they kept seeing this. Well, then when I always slept with my window open because I had to have fresh air. Have you ever been tickled below your ribs? And sometimes you can be tickled so hard it hurts.
Yeah.
Well, I woke up to that happening. And I had this electricity going through my body. Like somebody had me by my waist and it tickled at first, and then it got really intense. And I was like, I woke up hearing myself saying, stop it, you're hurting me. And right then I looked to my side and somebody was evaporating. Something and then you hear the metallic sound. And it's huge light. Pardon me?
Is it the sound that you were hearing on the phone?
No, not the same. This was gentler. I think what was happening is because I was leaving gosh, how do I explain this? When you're in a very disruptive family, the bad doesn't like you to leave. When they have you in their grips, and I ain't just talking about my family, I'm talking, say, bad stuff, bad things. When you leave something that's like that, they don't like you to go. Right. They'll do things to scare you. Whenever you make up your mind that I'm going to do something better for myself, they don't like it, especially when you come from way down. Lower vibrational living, I will say, and dysfunction and violence and the rapes and the molestations and all of that stuff. I was leaving it. I was getting out, and that's when it all started. But yeah, when that happened to me in Sonoma, I did get mad because it hurt. But then when I looked and I seen something evaporating, it wasn't like the little guys or all the people that were in my yard. This was something spiritual on the light side, but it was alien. Because you could feel and almost, it's like a smell to metallic. I don't know, maybe it was the engines, but there wasn't a sound, but a big bright light just shot through the house. Wow. I mean, and I just sat up, but I wasn't scared this time. I wasn't scared at all. And I could feel that energy going into my hips, like, my waist, like somebody was tickling me for almost a week. I just had, if I touched my sides, it would get tingly, like, and I was telling everybody, and they're like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, you guys don't get this. You're saying that I'm walking around in a cloak. You're seeing spirits walk around here trying to imitate me, but yet you you won't listen to when I'm telling you what came through the window, right. What was in my room. and they're all like, the ghost stories they liked and the ghost presences, they were all like, yeah, that's cool. And they're all, into it because we were raised in it. And so that was my last alien experience that way until the year 2000. And somebody wanted me to get a reading. And I was like, I'm not into psychics, and yeah, I'm an astrologer now, and stuff like that. But I wasn't into psychics or tarot cards or any of that stuff. Oh no, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. I said I can't afford it, because they wanted $50, which for a medium clairvoyant only charged that much. I was like, yeah, right. Like this is gonna be really real, So
Exactly.
I thought. So they're like, we're paying for it for you. You got to go. They're expecting you, and I'm like, you didn't give them my name. Don't say that. So I decided, so I called up the lady who makes the appointments. I said, can my friend Renee come? And she used to practice witch stuff, but she told me she didn't do it. And I knew they still did a little bit. I was never into it ever. Not because I was against it, but that wasn't my deal. Wasn't into that. I believed in God, and I read in the Bible a little bit that, that kind of stuff was bad, but I also thought about me doing astrology was bad, but I didn't use it for other people. It was for me, because I always thought that I was that big. I thought I was worthless. I didn't even know what a goal was, to have a goal, until I was in my 30s. I didn't think I was allowed to have a goal. That's how little I thought of myself. And so they've been trying to get my attention a long time to say, you're good, and we moved. I'm sorry, I'm hesitating because I got to turn this off. I have my sounding bowls on, but it's distracting me. Because I was getting rid of negative energy. And so as I'm doing this reading with this lady, I was thought, she can't know more than I've been through. I'm going to get some funky reading, because I see my sister get readings from people that have the sign out in front of the house at the Palm, saying get readings. She would go and I'd listen. I'm like, this is a joke. So I go in this room in this house. It was on Sunrise Avenue in Petaluma, California. And I remember thinking, what a nice name. I walk in this house where the reading is supposed to be, and it was like walking into a sterilized ship. It was like there was no the energy in there was so pure and so light. That was just like, where are we? And I looked at Renee and I said, do you see this? And all of a sudden this guy stood on the stairwell and he said, hi, Colleen. And I looked up at him and I swear there was like 5 people in his eyes. It was like I could see, like I sensed there was more than one with him. And so it was my turn to go in, and she's telling me her name is, she went into her thing and she went into her to channel this entity. And this lady said, we've been waiting to meet you, but you're here a little soon, she said. And I was thinking, my appointment time? But then she went, I started thinking about stuff that had happened to me, my past, excuse me for burping. And she said, how do I put this? She said, I asked her if she was sent here to help, and she said yes. And she almost talked robotic.
Whoa.
I don't know if you've ever heard readings from other aliens that channel through people, and they talk very robotic, that's how she talked.
Kind of like monotone.
Yes. And you could tell they don't use emotion when they're talking. There's no emotion when they talk. And so she said, I had this big crystal in my pocket. A bird appeared in it, and I wanted to know why. So I had it in my pocket. This is one of the first crystals I got on my own. And she says, crystals will not help you. You don't need a crystal for what you are and who you are. And I was like, how did she know I had that in my pocket?
Right.
Then she said, Colleen, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to tell you a number that I know is real important to you. And when I was a kid, jumped across some of the verses in the Bible, and I went right to Revolutions, and it said, "There's 144,000 will be chosen." And as a kid, I remember thinking, I want to be one of them. I want to be one of them. I want to be one of the 144,000. I want to do good by God and be a soldier. I want to be. So all of a sudden, she pops up. I know this number is important, 144,000. I went, what? She goes, let me explain to you what that is in my own way. And I was like thinking, how does she know that number?
Right.
And she explained that we have 144,000 aspects of ourselves. And that once every one of us, of 144,000 of us, learns what we came to Earth to do, then we become one and decide what we want to do next, or we just go where God wants to take us. And I'm sitting there going, what the heck? And then she said, but the thing is, the 144,000 have another 144,000. And they have 144,000. She goes, this could take millions of years for all of you to come home. And I was thinking, okay. And then she said, she asked me if I had any questions. I said, yeah, how's my brother? And she said, he's in the fifth dimension and he sees you sometimes. And I said, okay. I had no idea really then what she was talking about. But so then all of a sudden she says, and I'm sorry, I'm laughing. She's laughing too. She said, what do you want in your new contract? And my eyes opened immediately. Went, I ain't signing no contract. I was just immediately went back to Satan stuff that they did to me and the things that I've been around that I didn't know I was around, and being around the bad aliens. And I was like, no. I said, and you hear me on the tape saying, I'm good. I don't mind working for a living. That's all I could say because that's all I knew how to do. And she says, okay. And then her voice changed literally. And she said, you've been brought to this earth to do your star work, my astrology. And I didn't say it. She said it, And so after after I was done, my friend did hers. And I remember just feeling like, and inside my head, it was weird because I did a lot of men's charts because I was always around a lot of men. And I do their charts, and there's so many Scorpions and Scorpio risings, right? And I remember thinking to myself, God, I've never done a female's chart that was a Scorpio rising. And all of a sudden, after the reading, she says, the lady was just by herself in herself. Portia was not speaking to her at this time. She said, do you mind doing my chart? And I'm thinking, what? You want me to do your chart? You're a clairvoyant.
Right.
You want me to do your chart? Like I could tell you something you don't already know.
Right.
And so I did it, and she was a Scorpio rising. And I said, oh, God. So she did that just so I could see it. And could say, because I was like, how come I never meet any females that have this? How come I'm around all this male energy that's like this? So when she asked me and I did it, when I got home, I'm like, son of a bitch. Then I got it. I was like, okay, she knew exactly what was in my head.
Yep.
They knew. And during the reading, I forgot this part. During the reading, I started to say, was that you? Because I was thinking about the phone calls I used to get. I was thinking about when I went and seen that place with all the crystals. And I said, was that you? And she goes, yes, that was me.
Okay, she confirmed it.
Yeah. And I was like, God, that was so scary. She said, not all of it. And I have it on tape. I have my tape. She said, but yes, we've been in contact for a long time.
Wow.
And she already knew what I felt about the other ones because I know for a fact, and there's some people, even Stephen Gear says, aliens, the only bad aliens are us humans. There are no bad aliens. Well, I beg to differ because you see the cow mutilations, you've seen all of the things that people have talked about being abducted and getting hurt, lost time, and then it messes with you really bad. I know because I've been there.
Have you
And
have you ever experienced lost time?
Well, yeah, like when they had me in that trailer I
Right.
don't remember. I remember just like it'd been like a couple days later. I'm
Right.
assuming I was awake the next day and said, "Yeah, I'm fine," but I don't recall it. I just know, a couple days later, I was walking further than I've ever walked and through mountains, and you know, and I'd never done that before. So, yeah. Um, Sometimes, like some of the hauntings we experience, a lot of them are lost aliens. They're not all ghosts. Their energy, like seeing that one evaporate, told me, and maybe it wanted me to see it, that we're not, it's not just about a ghost, like an evil spirit or somebody haunting you because they want to haunt you. Now, what happened to me when I was little, that was bad. That was negative. That was really scary, But the rest, I know there's some good ones. And what's coming now, like the, I believe that one guy, I can't remember his name. I sent you a clip of him. The ones that we're going to see now, they do look like us. It's just going to be people that will talk different. They talk monotone, but they're very matter of fact. Nothing gets in their way emotionally. Nothing. They know exactly why they're here and what they're doing. Some just want to hang out with us. They just want to experience life here. And some have come, and like what happened at Roswell, they did shoot down those crafts and they did kill those beings that were on there. Well, I know for a fact that the government now, right now, absolutely has known about these guys that are here for many, 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 many years. Some have been here before time, before we knew it, and those were some of the fallen angels, though. And that's where you get the Satanism.
Yeah.
It comes from the fallen angels, and that's once that I didn't see the forest when I was in there. I had to leave the forest to see the trees because
Yeah.
it was too scary in there. But then once I got out, I could see, and that's where I placed my ex-boyfriend, some of his family members. Some of them called and apologized right before they died. um, and I know he's still alive because I could feel his energy sometimes trying to get around me, and it's nasty. And I always feel like if they're around me, aspects of myself or my guides, I get really warm. They kind of, if you ever feel like something's around you and you don't know why, or you just feeling heat, that's usually them.
Oh.
Almost like you're sitting there and you feel like you're like this, crowded. She taught me that one. She said to be aware of that.
Tiger
And
has
she
a
said,
Tiger has a question for you.
okay.
He asked, "Has there ever been an encounter that has been truly peaceful or nice?"
Um,
The crystal encounter sounded like it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I was literally giving up on life, and it's like they knew to save me because I did not understand. So many of us are born here, and we don't know where we came from. We just are here, and we're humans, and we have a mom and dad, and we go to school, and we get jobs, and we do everything that everybody else is doing. That's what I did. I didn't know how to think ahead and go, "This is my goal." I didn't even know what a goal was.
Right.
In school, I was always just trying to stay awake because my parents would fight so much trauma was happening there. I used school to sleep, and the teachers did know what was going on, but nobody ever did anything. And they would let me go to, we had a big, big field you could just go in, and we had smoking areas, and I would just go crash out and they would still pass me with a C minus or a D because I could not get myself to get back on track. There was no way I was on track. I didn't have that kind of a life. Um, I was always just surviving and fighting off everything that was attacking me, But the most peaceful, I would have to say, was the crystal experience in that. But I think I went into Earth. To be honest with you, I do. I don't think it was in the sky. I think I went into Earth. And the other time when I woke up saying, "You're hurting me," I know they were not trying to harm me. but they went a little too far. I would hear that noise sometimes and I'd wake up and shut my window going, no, not tonight. Don't wait. That's the thing about me. Don't wake me up. I have to have sleep because, if I don't, I'm not good. I can't think, and so I think that's probably the 2 times that were okay. I did lose time. I definitely lost time on that one when they came in the house. But nothing like that was like days. And it's probably just me not remembering what
Right.
had happened. So,
Your last experience was in 2020, you said?
but that was with Portia.
Okay.
That was the lady who did the reading.
Okay. So you haven't had anything after? No.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, but they don't talk. They don't do that to me no more. They just talk to me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I feel like I get downloads. I don't know how to explain it better. It's like I wake up sometimes and I got downloaded a bunch of information that I'm like, what is this about? Okay, am I supposed to learn about this? Okay, eventually it'll come and it will show me why I was supposed to learn it, but you don't get to know it right away, everything they tell you.
Right.
It's only when it's time to learn it. It's like, learn what you know, they say, as they told me many times, learn what you know. And I'm like going, what are you talking about? It made no sense to me. But now it's more, here in Oregon, I know I've driven by some places and I'm like, don't stop. Because they like the forests. They like being hidden. They love being in the mountains. They've been there a long time, some of them.
Hi, Fiona.
And a lot of like these things that you're seeing in the sky now are mostly what we redid, re-engineered after shooting down some and learned how to create these energies or these spaceships. And I believe most of them there's some humans on those ships as well as humanoids, you could say. But I think what's getting ready to happen is they are going to start servicing. Now I'm scared because only this part, I don't want to see a reptile person. I don't want to see those grays that scared me. Yeah. And I definitely don't want to see, but they were not nice. So I knew it was wrong because I was so scared. And usually with something's good around you, you feel okay. You don't have that fear. When God comes, Jesus is there.
You can sense danger, right?
Yeah, right. And so when I moved away from Long Beach and went to Sonoma, I lived above this house or above a store in an apartment, but it was huge, really big. And my sister moved in with me like a week later, and we had such a huge bedroom. It was just one bedroom, but it was so big. We put 3 queen-size beds in there, catty corner, and we still had all this room, in the middle. And so we all 3 slept in there. And when I worked at Sonoma Mission and Spa at the time, it's now the Fairmont, and it was a 5-star place then. And when I moved, I got up there, it was like so much weird shit. People that came to visit me would call me at work and say, we just had a conversation with you in your house. How is it that you're at work? I'm scared. I want to leave. And I'm like, no, it's not me. I'm talking to you on the phone. And they thought I was doing something weird tricks or something. And people, and it was happening all the time. People would only come around in groups at my house. It was like, whatever's happening, we don't want to be left alone in the house. And I was like, there's nothing there. It's just I knew something was mimicking me, And so things happened like sitting, like I told you about this. I was sleeping and we had these cupboards that were real low. And I stashed a couple 12 packs in there for my daughter's birthday party of soda pop. Well, in the middle of the night, all of a sudden, you could hear a cupboard door go slam. It was a metal one. It was cheap. Wham! And I was like, what in the world was that? And I kind of set up, and then I hear this just like somebody's just throwing rocks in the kitchen. I mean, hitting hard against the wall. And I jump up, and my sister jumps up. I told my daughter to stay where she is, and I walk out, and these soda cans are just shooting out of the cupboard.
Oh
I
my
mean,
god.
like somebody had a full strong arm, just wham, wham. And they weren't just going across the room; they were flying, busting open. And the only thing I could think of was scream. I screamed, "Fuck you! Get out of my house! You guys don't know that cost me a lot of money." I was mad, so mad, but because I already had an understanding about this stuff. It was weird
Right.
how it just kept coming. And I was so angry, and it stopped when I yelled. And I was just like, son of a bitch, that pisses me off. Get the fuck out of my house. Just, and then, but when I wasn't there, things would happen. Like my sister would call me at work. She worked at the same building or the same place as I did. And I was a manager or a house, private bar supervisor there. And she worked at the pool, and we're dealing with 5-star everything at this place, right? And so, I mean, we did our jobs right. We did them good. We were always good people that kept our jobs, and we ran by the rules. And anybody that went in that apartment, my sister would go, she was there, she'd call me almost every time if I wasn't there. The candles were lighting on themselves. I'm like, the candles can't light themselves. She's like, Colleen, get home. So I'd rush across the street because I lived right across the street from where I worked. Sure enough, that I'm like, well, blow it out. Don't be scared. And then it just would keep happening. And other people would come, and my table would shake all of a sudden, but I knew who that was. That was my friend Renee and her little friend Michelle that liked to do witchy stuff. And they're like calling me, oh, did you feel that? And I was like, you know what, you guys, I don't know who you are, but I don't want to be around you. You scared my daughter. This isn't even funny, because I wasn't into that kind of stuff. I was always just trying to survive and find my way through life because I felt so little about myself. And then I started coming up and realizing I am somebody. I am loved by Jesus. I am loved by God. I'm loved by my guys. I'm loved. We all are. God, that's the message. They really we are so loved, but so many of us don't feel it, because we bought in. None of us, and also another message, none of us are from here. None of us. None of us. The only ones that came here and got stuck with the fallen angels, and that bred that shadow government we have right now. And that's where, that's why I can't get into politics. Because I know, like Donald Trump, he's a seed plant, and he's here. He likes his shiny, pretty things, as you all know, but he was sent here to create a different world. It's going to change. I mean, if you don't see everything going on in almost, how many countries are at war? Look at Mexico today. Look at what happened to Donald Trump last night. This stuff is not going to slow down for a little bit. So don't freak out and don't be afraid. You have to, I say this now, and somebody else could walk in my house in any second. Now my door's pushing open. Okay. So I gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. You gotta just stay. If you laugh about it, that's good. But don't fear it. Don't fear it. And I always have to. Don't be afraid. Don't. God, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm like, yes, I am. But I'm not anymore. And I sometimes worry that they're going to come back for me. I do. But I think I'm more protected now because I believe in the good. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in everything that is of love and that is right and truth. So they just want people to know how loved they are. We all have spiritual parents besides our parents here. We have spiritual parents that aren't here. We have people waiting for us. But there's also that tricky part, and I'm jumping everywhere, and I'm sorry. So reincarnation, that crap's going to be over with. That was a trick. Reincarnation is a trick that I wholeheartedly believe because I've already told them I'm good. I ain't doing no contracts. I don't mind working for a living. But then again, of course, 7 years later, I end up injuring myself so bad that now I can never work again.
Right.
So, but you know, I was blessed with some money and I bought myself a home, a car, and a little bit of extra money in the bank, you know? And so I think that's the Lord's way of saying, okay, you're retired. You don't have to go through so much anymore. You know, I get lonely because of the things I hear and I can't talk to anybody about it really a lot. I try to tell my family members, like my sister saying, "Oh, we're a big tribe." She has no idea. She's so democratic, and so she has drank the Kool Aid so bad. She just gets so.
I love how I pissed her off within the first minute of
Yeah,
our recording.
she did. She did say, you know what the thing is with her? She, like when I was at Charlie Cook's memorial, she, I was in a wheelchair because I can't walk very far, and they were gonna we scoped out the area before we were gonna go, and we were supposed to go in the morning. Well, my two sisters who I was with, they decided, no, we want to go at midnight to get a good seat, and I'm like, this ain't a concert, but we knew like 250,000 people were coming or more, and the hotel was just packed, and we had 2 rooms because
In fact, you were able to get in at all.
Pardon me?
Did you actually got into the venue?
Well, when they got up at midnight, I didn't feel good. I didn't have any sleep. I said, I can't go in. I can't. There's something telling me not to go in. I'm not supposed to be going in at this time. No. Well,
Jane.
So my energy though was all about Charlie Kirk, all about it. And I was feeling it. I was focusing. I was meditating on it. And I had turned on the TV to see the memorial. And as soon as all of the fireworks went off, I knew there was something wrong. And then Erica came out and I got sick. I threw up. And I was like, why am I getting sick? Why would that affect me? Yeah, I didn't understand that. I really didn't. And then all of a sudden my sister calls me, how dare you? I seen the picture you're at Charlie Cook. And I'm like, yeah, I am. So what? You Republicans, you, and just was laying into me. And I stopped her and I laid into her so bad. I mean, I'm an empath, and as empaths, we could go deep, and we'll pull out the worst shit you've ever felt in your life and bring it right up through your mouth and show it to you and then smash you back in. I mean, that can happen, and I've done it. And I am not proud of that, but when you piss me off to a point.
I'm nice until I'm not nice.
Yeah. And that's why, people say, oh, well, I used to be very strong. I was built. I had it wasn't horrible, but it was for me as a kid because by the time I was in 7th, 8th grade, my figure was 36, 24, 32. I had like this perfect figure 8 figure, boobs, everything, and I was just a kid. And so it was just, the things that came around me was just nasty. It was like I was a piece of meat. I wasn't a little girl. It was just being used and being just bad things. And
I have a question. If this comes out and Trump, releases the UFO files and stuff, how do you think that the normal, sheeple, the people that have no clue what's fucking going on, how do you think they're going to react to that?
There's going to be a lot of them that don't even hear about it. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're not even going to acknowledge it because they're not going to know about it, and that's for a reason. Everybody has their own time to see this time that we're going to start seeing them. Not everybody's going to see them because there's some that are going to be in such fear that they're going to think everything is an alien or, it's against God. Well, I'm sorry, but from what I've been told and what I understand, the aliens know God very well. They're from God too. They're Jesus is like my buddy, man. To me, I know I worked with Jesus before. I know because I have this thing with Archangel Michael. I worked that blue flame sword with him. For my own protection, and I've always looked at Jesus as my friend. Even people that have worked on me with Reiki, they're like, we've never had somebody with Christ consciousness before, and I'm like, what does that mean? Because they were like, oh, we're gonna bless this circle and we're gonna do this, and I just say amen, and they were like, look up at me like amen. And I'm like, yeah, amen. If you're doing this thing, you guys say your words, and this is what I believe, but they would, so I didn't understand that. I thought everybody knew that God knew the aliens, and I thought, but they don't. They think that if it's an alien ship, it has nothing to do with God, and it does. It really does. They all know God. They know where they came from. There's so many civilizations out there there's some like this, from what I was told. There's some that are like Earth, but different. It's a weird. I got some pictures given to me in my mind, and I was like, it's and some of them use lights from the crystals alone that are bigger and brighter than the sun. Can you imagine that? That these guys use light from a crystal, the reflection and the energy that are brighter than the sun.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty magnificent, if you ask me. That's definitely the Lord saying, look, but yeah, and the second wave, and there'll be people, there's going to be so many podcasters going to say, true, this isn't happening. So it's going to confuse people. And if everybody went away from their TVs, to be honest with you, and dug deep in their soul and had a good belief system, nothing's going to harm them. I mean, it will scare you maybe. And hopefully none of the bad ones are getting ready to get smashed. I'll tell you that. Because it's finally, I think, arriving, and I hope I'm right. But I just got a feeling that the other ones that are going to show, they're here to help finally. Like the aspect that happened on the 17th of February, where Saturn and Neptune, Saturn's reality and the Lord of Karma, but it's also reality, and then Neptune's illusion. They came together at 0 degrees Aries for the first time in thousands of years. And it was like, some say 50 years past Christ. So that's when religion was born, around then. So there's going to be a big shift. And in the timelines, there's a timeline split right now. So people can start figuring out what they believe in and why they came to Earth in the first place. Why did you come? What was your purpose? See, we bought into this world so many times, and then in the karmic will, they're like, "Oh, you should learn this, and this will better and make you better if you learn this." Well, they need workers here. Yeah. They need people to do what they want. The big billionaires, you could say, but it's not even billionaires. It's just some really sick, nasty, nasty beings that want us to stay, to do their jobs and to function. So they want to continue being here. They've been here long enough, though, from what I'm understanding. And I don't think they're going to, I know they're not going to show up and start using laser beams or anything like that. But people will start waking up because hopefully they're gentle. I believe they will be. It's kind of like they'll start getting downloads instead of just walking in their house, and scaring you. People start getting downloads and starting to shift their consciousness, and that's the thing. I mean, believe me, I'm one of the stragglers. Hurry, I'm coming. I swear I'm coming. I just feel like I'm saying that. Don't forget me. Don't leave me here. I'm coming, because I've been here long enough, but yeah, and that's why, with Trump, he's supposed to do what he's doing. And he listens to, I believe he's never met an alien. I don't think he's like that. I think he is more about Christ in him than alien stuff. But the government that's really running the world, the dark shadow, they work with them. They are a part of them. And they explore and experiment on us. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. And now it's got to stop. Now it's time to stop. Because you wonder why people are on drugs and this and that, and they're people are like the transgender thing. That's alien. That's experimental. I guarantee it. That I know for a fact. That they're experimenting on humans. I mean, look what they did with us.
I always thought the transgender thing was more demonic.
It is.
Yeah.
The ones that, the
They
bad ones that
them
are,
demons use they them pronouns. So
yeah. They, I call them they because I'm not going to give them a title.
right.
They're just there. But they've been harming people for a long time. And if people were to start to understand that it's not their fault and that we're free, we are free, then hopefully those people will not decide that and go back to the old way of thinking of Jesus died for our sins. No, you're responsible for your actions and you will be held responsible for your actions. And if you don't, then yeah, you'll meet something that it'll tell you, no, and you'll get caught up in that cycle of guilt, shame, regret, this and that, and they like to throw those at you in that karmic will, you know, and you just gotta say, I'm good, man, I'm good. I'm absolutely honest with myself. I know everything about me, and even if there's some things I don't know, that'll be hashed out later. I'll talk to God directly about that. I talk to him all the time, and I always get told, be quiet. Or it's not all about you, Colleen. And then
You will know
sometimes
what I want you to know.
yeah. And when, I totally believe in the Jacob's ladder thing where he got lame in the hip because he wanted so much knowledge, and too soon. And that's in the Bible. But yeah, they're coming. And we have a beautiful one coming on the 28th where we have like 7 planets out of 10 that got to be lined up. Remember that song, Age of Aquarius?
Yeah.
Sing that song. Listen to that song now. Because that's what's here.
I haven't heard that song in a while. I'll have to go back and listen to it.
You should find it. I think it's called Aquarius or the Age of Aquarius. And it's happening. This lineup that they talk about in the song, it's happening. And I'm excited, but I'm also like, okay, I hope this one is real. This one is really going to happen for us. But we are changing. Things are going to change, shift a lot. And it'll be about 100 years.
I'm going to read a couple things from the chat.
Okay.
Michael says transgender and the letters are called.
Transgender and what?
Transgender and the letters are a cult.
Yeah.
The Alphabet Gang. Yeah.
It is.
And Shane says Jesus died for our sins, but it's not a catch-all forever. You must repent and turn away from sin.
That's right.
And
take responsibility. Yeah, just you make the smallest mistake, just take responsibility for it. We're not perfect by any means. We're humans. And Jesus did. The Jewish. I want to call them Zionists. I won't call it because there's a lot of beautiful Jewish people, but the Zionists, they're in there deep. They're the ones who are killed. They're killing babies and women because they want to blot out bloodlines. They're playing God. That's Satan right there. That's them thinking that they have the Holy Land. Well, I'm sorry. The Bible told me, and God said, you are my temple. And if I'm the temple, everywhere I go is where God wants me to be. Yeah. It's not just in Israel, And so these wars that are happening and there's so much changes coming, so much. It'll calm down, a little couple months here and there this year where we get a break, because it's not going to stop. It's not going to slow down. Everything we're seeing now is not, it's building momentum.
I feel it. I feel it. Yeah.
And on February 25th, Mercury, the planet Mercury, the communication planet, and it's also a trickster, is going retrograde. It's already in the dawn of going retrograde. It doesn't go backwards. The planet doesn't go backwards. It just slows down so much. It feels like it because the other planets are in their normal orbit. So when you hear Mercury's retrograde, it doesn't mean it's stopping and going backwards. It just is slowed down so much. And so you'll see computers breaking down. Get ready for it. Computers, phones, communication skills. People will hear things and they think you're saying it the wrong way and they take it the wrong way. And that goes on for about 3.5 weeks every 3 months, every year. It happens all the time. And it's also time to let go of things that are not serving you anymore. That aren't helping you, so don't have it around. Even if it's a person, you could just say, no, I'm done with this situation and I don't want to go back to that. I want to move on and learn what I want to learn or what I'm supposed to be learning. you know um but yeah, man, we've got such astrological stuff going on right now that. And then for Trump to say, yes, there's alien life, you kind of see how he's kind of made it real light. Like, yeah, okay, Obama shouldn't have said that on TV. And, but he knows they're there. He knows. But I don't believe he communicates with them. I don't think he does at all. And Biden, that man wasn't even there half the time. That wasn't his body. I mean, I used to see it all the time. I'm like, ooh, 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 ooh. That guy's not human right now. But they could look just like us. They've been taking our DNA for many, many thousands of years. They've been taking. I know they took fluid out of my spine because that's the pain I felt. That they went right into my spinal cord and took what they wanted. And I was told that those ones that clone us or that have done it, they are still a part of us. I've heard people seeing children in their dreams that weren't theirs, but they're alien-like, but they were theirs. So I don't think we're going to see that kind of stuff happening because that'd be really freaky. But there's some people that do see that and know about that.
They're asking, so what of the missing astrology, the 13th? What is the 13th one?
Say that quick. I need to hear that one more time.
What of the missing astrology, the 13th? What is the 13th one? I'm not sure what they mean.
Oh, the 13th one. Are they can't be talking about a planet that's in our atmosphere, that's in our galaxy, that's in our, I'm not sure what he's asking. The 13th. 13 is not a bad number. I mean, even when I worked, most hotels you go to, you'll never see a 13th floor. Well, I worked, of course, it had a 13th floor. And that's where all the ambassadors and presidents and things like that would be up there. And it was just a weird space.
They would stay on the 13th floor?
Oh, all the presidents.
Yeah? Oh,
ambassadors. And then when I went, the first time I got to work up there and I started taking over like the top 5 floors as the housekeeping manager. The first time I walked, and I already been studying, mind you, and I've already been through a lot of stuff. I walked in the presidential suite and there was every methodical book on this planet that was really deep in that room. And there was permanent books that there was not just pictures of like the American flag. There was a lot of methodical images in there and statues that scared me and books that I thought, holy shit, why would this be in the president's suite? What's going on here? And I had this one guest show up and everybody was afraid. And they were like, and that's when they moved me up to those floors. And they said, look at this. And we had a computer in my office and it would show who checked in, how many rooms were checked in. And you could even see their names if you clicked over. Well, this friend of mine who worked with me, she was like on the computer helping me get the rooms logs ready for my housekeepers to go clean. And she's like, Colleen, look at this. And I'm like, what? And she said, a guy checked in with no ID, no credit card, but it said, genuine Lucifer. I'm like, maybe that's his name, something weird. And so I was like, what's going on? I thought, okay, just some weird crap again. Well, then the next day it said genuine platinum Lucifer on his name. And the housekeepers heard it and they're like, we ain't going up there. We're not cleaning the room. We're scared. And I was like, no, this is bullshit. Come on. I went to the front desk. I'm like, look, tell me what's going on with this room in the sky. Because housekeepers are like, oh, it's this one white guy. And that's it. Next day or a couple hours later, even, it was a Chinese guy. No, it's a black guy. And I'm like, what? No, there's only one person in that room. What do you mean he's now Chinese or now he's black or now he's Mexican, now he's white? You guys are losing your minds, you know? So when I went up to his front desk, I'm like, what in the world? You know, I got to get my housekeepers calmed down. Who is this guy and what's the, we don't know. I'm like, well, what's his credit card? He doesn't have a credit card. What did he drive in at? He drove in on 10 speed. I'm like, what? When do we check people in without identification in this hotel, especially with Secret Service, federal CIA? It was a World Trade Center. Okay, we had mega security, but this guy was able to check in without a credit card, ID, and I'm like, who checked him in? You know, what's going on? And they're like, we don't know, but we're not allowed to say anything. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to? It's the word's gotten out. My housekeepers don't want to go in there. So I gathered 4 of them. I said, I'll go with you. I'll go in the room and we're all together and nothing's going to happen. And I powered myself up being like, God be with us, Jesus, because I've been through enough. I already seen so much. And then we go in there and there was a 10 speed. And there was probably 5 or 6 Bibles open. And I know something told me, I know he has those open for me to read. And then I went and he underlined certain scriptures. I wish I would have remembered from Book of Revelations, different scriptures, you know, and I was like thinking, okay, those messages, I'll be honest, I don't remember them. I just remember it frightened me because everything that was in the scriptures that I was reading, and I got to the 4th book and he walked in. This little short guy, blonde hair, maybe in his 50s. He's like, hi, ladies. The girls just about shit their pants. And they're like, you must have other people in this room because yesterday I seen a black guy. He's like, no, I'm just a man. You know, don't worry about it. Well, I was like going, okay, you guys, let's hurry up and get out of here. He's in the room. And when somebody comes in the room, that's the guest. We have to leave, you know, unless they want us to be in there and we have to keep the door open. And he said, I see you enjoying my books. And I was like, no, I just, you know, I was dusting. And so the rest of the week, he was still there. I had to go in every time, every day to do the room with 4 or 5 of them. And I met him all of a sudden I was in the big elevator, the gold one for the guests. And I had to make sure it looked good. And I got in there and he jumps on at the 13th floor. And he looks at me and goes, hi, Colleen. And I said, hello. And he said, do you know the Hilton? Baron Hilton is real close to God. And immediately I was like, shut up, you asshole liar. No, he's not, because he's all capitalism. And it's all about, you know, money, 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 you know. And I responded. I know I said to him, well, that's nice. But inside I was like, oh shit, you're telling me that Baron Hilton, this guy that, you know, I knew who he was, you know, and I knew they weren't good. And not just because they had money and they had this corporation going, but I just felt the energy was wrong. And so that guy just ended up leaving. His name kept changing and he kept adding on different stuff. I'm like, who's doing that to the computers?
Right.
Who keeps saying genuine or just Lucifer, then genuine Lucifer and genuine platinum Lucifer? And I can't even remember the rest of the ones because he was there for 5 days. And I thought, oh God. And
Who
then
do you
I
think
put
that was? Who was he?
a messenger, alien, because everybody see different colored people coming out. Like
Right.
he you know, he what do you call it? What do you call that? I know what the word is.
Not really shapeshifter, but
Yes, that's the word. Shapeshifter.
shapeshifter. Yeah.
Because a lot of the aliens can be very much, very much. Bigfoot, he's an alien, and he's been lost. They've been lost here. They've been stuck here. You know, they're not here to do anything to us. They don't want to harm us. They don't want to be harmed. They're just as nervous about things as we are. But Bigfoot is definitely, that's a alien race for sure. I know that for a fact. I mean, I'll get facts like, I'll ask questions in my mind and they'll answer. You know, I just get it, you know. And if it's something just in my head, I can't get the answer because I'll get all, you know, too many things going through my brain. And I got to be real quiet and ask. and then they give me the answer, you know. But yeah, I've gone through a wild ride in this life.
You've had
And
a lot
it's
of interesting stories, that's for sure.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wait till you talk to my sister. Oh my god. She didn't do the alien thing. At least not that I know of, but a lot of hauntings. And I told her, it's always around negative. We could create the negative energy ourselves and make things happen in the house. Just what I'm talking about. If you're in a path in your brain, you're miserable, you'll feel things around you that really aren't there, but you are manifesting that. We could do that. And I've been around when I'm around my sister Kathleen, we can't live together long because it's like the haunting style, but it's not haunting. It's our energy meshed, and things fly off tables. You know, things she has filmed, but the
Yeah,
things
I have to look through those tapes. She did send me those to me. I just haven't had time to clip
we
them.
would have we would I think in that house in Laurel Lake, California, it was after I got injured and I was having surgeries every year, my shoulders, my cervical spine. Um, we were having some energy there. Like for about 2 months, I kept feeling like somebody was brushing, like a cat was rubbing against my leg. And I would tell her, it's happening again. A cat just walked by. Colleen, there's no cats. You have your cats and they're over here. They didn't touch your leg. I'm like, I'm telling you. And even when I wore long pants, it was like go under my pant leg and just really gently brush against my leg in that house. And I'd be like, what in the world is going on? But I wasn't scared of that because it was gentle. And I have a small tattoo on my ankle right where it was. And the only person that knows about that tattoo or that did a tattoo with me at the same time was my daughter's uncle, Lonnie. And he had just passed like a year before.
Oh.
And it was right where the tattoo was. And I was just, but I didn't put it together. And of course, it took me forever. And I'm like, tattoo. I was in the word tattoo. I'm like, tattoo.
Chat thinks that Lucifer guy was a skinwalker.
I don't know. Could have been, but from what I understand about skinwalkers, they're not nice.
No.
This
Don't
guy
want to
wasn't
cross
me.
paths with a skinwalker, that's for sure.
I don't want to. I'd probably die from fear and just It's yeah. I would say more of a shapeshifter. I think he was alien. It could have been Skinwalker, but he wasn't. There was no bad energy. It was just a very neutral, clear energy around him. There wasn't, and he talked to you like a normal human being, but you knew this guy was not just any guy. Especially with all the remarks of different colored people coming out of the room, and this he's not white, he's Chinese. What are you talking? No, he's white. No, he's black. And I'm like, I don't know what they seen, but I'm glad that when I went in there, I had the girls with me and they were glad I was there, because I was, there's been so many things I've seen in my life that, it makes you feel really messed up. It makes you feel messed up sometimes. It's a lonely life because you can't talk about this to my neighbors or Christians. I believe in Jesus Christ. I wholeheartedly do. Do I know the Bible a lot? No, I don't. Parts of it, there's parts, whenever I start reading, I cry. And especially the Old Testament, I cry and I get upset. Certain parts of the Bible just piss me off, to be honest with you. And I don't know why it is. The book of Job really got me upset because I thought, why would you make a deal with Satan to test us? And so I think that book, has a twist in it that we don't know about. I think they changed some things because from the God I know and Jesus, same together, they don't do things like that. Negative things are the ones that scare you. Good things, pure things, things that come from love. And you could always ask that if you get a weird thought and it's something that you don't recognize or it's negative, just say, if you I will only take this message if it comes from love.
Yeah.
Because you got to protect yourself. I feel very scattered.
You shared a lot of interesting stories today, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. You have me really thinking. have me really
What?
you have me really thinking about stuff, like
Yeah, I know. And that's probably why they have me living alone and I don't have real friends around. I can't be around a lot of people because then I absorb them. I absorb their energy. It's just like I'm a sponge and I feel everything they feel and I feel their emotions.
I know. They keep telling me my microphone is too low. I'm like, I know.
But so I can't be around people for too long. It drains me. It makes me feel really depleted. And then when I can't be around them, I get really anxious, like, oh, no, let me help you. You know what? You know why this is happening to you? Because you're thinking like this. And they're like, get away from me, And but I don't know how to respond by not being who I am. I don't know how to think different. I don't know. Everything they've put me through, I think it was because they wanted to show me the difference,
Yeah.
the good and the bad, and that's the only way I could see what happened, because I get angry sometimes. Like, why did I have to go through all that? And they say, oh, you picked this life. You know what? I didn't pick to be tortured and be raped and to have all these things. And God forbid, so there's some things I know, and they say that it was about your contract, it's like, kiss my ass, I'm done with this, and, even my Reiki person, she has said something. She says things to me sometimes that I don't like, she sometimes the childlike in me gets real excited when I've seen some of the other people because I recognize them. My child in me, my spirit recognizes this other spirit that's in a, like me. And they at first were like, you ready to do an intention? And you've got this life. You could let the inner child go. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm not gonna,
Michael says you need to learn how to use your empath and psychic training kind of thing. Like how to turn it on and off your empath.
yeah.
I need to learn how to do that too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anybody around me showing me that. I don't know. I don't have, the best thing I do to get myself into control when all of this is happening, I listen to sounding bowls a lot. I'll listen to, it just does something for me. I recognize that gentle humming and that frequency, I don't go up to 485 gigahertz. That's a little much, but I like the 1111 and a little above that. And that helps my brain, but I don't, maybe that's what's going to come. I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm afraid to look at my chart because I'm all, oh God, where's it going to hit me at? All
You
this
still haven't
lineup.
figured out that I have a yod. I'm like,
Yes.
what?
Yes. And did you look that word up?
I did.
And
you were spot on. You were spot on
yeah.
with almost everything that you told me.
Yeah. And it's a drive. It's like, some people that have yods have a hard time. They don't, it's not an easy aspect to have because you have a driving force that you don't see.
Right. All right, Colleen, I have to get it going. I have to make dinner and everything. But
okay.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you everybody for joining.
I apologize for being scattered, but I didn't write stuff down.
No, I'd rather have it unscripted than you trying to read off.
Okay. All right.
That's not.
Say goodbye to goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, bye, guys. Thank you guys for joining us.
Okay. We'll talk to you later.